Hello, Twitch. Welcome and happy Friday. My name is Terry White. I'm the worldwide design and photography evangelist at Adobe, and it's my pleasure to spend the next couple of hours with you talking about a topic that I keep getting asked about all the time, and that is Adobe Muse. Show more Muse, show Muse, show me Muse. Nonstop. And we're going to do that now for 2 hours. I'm normally on this channel Tuesdays and Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern till noon, so 2 hour streams. And while that's subject to change here and there, but that's usually my schedule. And I'm usually talking about Photoshop and Lightroom. But today, happy Friday, we're going to talk about Muse instead. Now, of course, I will bring some photography into it here and there, but this is really about web design, and I decided to take it from scratch. I did a 2 hour stream when Muse got its last update at the end of January. I did one on the new responsive features. But this time we're just going to take it from scratch of you don't know anything about Muse, and we're going to get started, and we're going to talk about different workflows and different approaches to web design, different strategies for whether you want multiple pages or one long scrolling page, whether you want fixed layouts, whether you want responsive layouts. So there's all kinds of different ways to approach web design in Muse. We're going to talk about as many as we can fit in 2 hours. All right, so if you're watching the replay, thanks for watching the replay. The replay is available for a limited time at twitch.tv/Adobe. And for my shows, I typically put them up on my YouTube channel so they can last longer at terrywhite.tv. Now, if you are watching the replay, I'm going to be doing this a lot, where I'm looking over at my other display, saying hi to people in the chat and answering questions, because this is a live broadcast, or at least it was. So hey Jan, hey Victoria, hey StarCrunch, good morning everyone in the chat so far. And also, as I get started, I like to check a couple things as far as making sure the stream health quality is good. So I've got an analytics program here, or an analyzer, that will let me know that the stream's okay. I also host my stream on my channel at twitch.tv/TerryLWhite. So let me get that hosted over there. All right, it's hosting now, and I just come down here and check to make sure that that looks good, and it does. Okay. All right, let's just go here. Make sure this looks good too. Cool. Glad you like this topic. It is one that I keep getting asked for, so let me mute myself there. So I'm going to go ahead and tackle it as best I can. This will be kind of a impromptu session, meaning I don't really have a planned 2 hour demo. I'm just going to take you through it as if you were sitting next to me and you said, hey, show me Muse. How do I get started? I'm just going to do it that way. So I'm going to show you all the things you can do, show you what some tips and tricks along the way, show you what's available, as much as I can fit in 2 hours, and let you take it from there. Of course, we'll take questions over at the chat. So feel free if you have a question. I may not answer it right away, meaning that I'll try my best to acknowledge the question, but it may be something that I'm already going to cover at another point, or I've already covered it and you just got here live in the stream. So good morning, everyone. Some more people are chiming in and coming into the room right now. And I just want to make sure that this all looks good. So far, so good, and it does. Can you maybe a promo page? Jan, I can work on the website for Terry Blanc, but not today. There's already a terrywhite.com. I think we'll use that one instead. All right. Let's see if I got everything else going here. Good, good, good. Everything looks good. Please show us OEM placement. If I have one, I don't know if I have one of those files, but if I have one, I'll absolutely try it. I might have one buried in my archives because I've done it before. All right. It's really just place. There's not a whole lot to it. It's just file, place, grab the object, put it on the page. But I'll do as best I can. Starting the stream, yes, just starting. No, you're not late. You're right on time. Maybe a small restaurant website. Well, again, I don't have all the assets ready for a small restaurant website, but what I do can apply to a small restaurant website. what does OEM placement mean? I think what he's referring to is Edge Animate uh, makes OAM files for placing in Muse, not OEM. So OAM is what I assumed he was referring to, he or she. So if, for example, you did an animation in Edge Animate and you wanted to put that right in Muse, you would just go to Edge Animate, export out an OAM file, and place it right in Muse. And wherever you placed it, it would do that animation. That's what I meant by there's not a lot to it. It's just file place, grab the OAM file, put it on the page. So if that's what you meant, that's all there is to it. What will I be making today? I'll be making a website based on a fictitious health company. Because I have some assets in the library for that already. But again, the example is really not relevant. It's just showing you how the program works, how the tools work, and just about the design in general. It's really not specific to any kind of site or company or anything like that. But you got to pick something. No coding needed for Muse. That's correct. Yes, Muse will create websites without coding. As a matter of fact, Muse doesn't even show you the code, so it's very hands-off with the code. If you want to go look at the code later, you can export the site out and look at it all you want, and anything that can open up. Yep, exactly. So yeah, Animate CC is what you would use today, correct, for animation. That's what I'll be using is Adobe Muse. So I should also, I should be very clear on making that distinction. Edge Animate was a tool that we used to use in Creative Cloud to create animations, and we had Adobe Flash. Flash migrated or morphed into what we now call Adobe Animate. So Adobe Animate can make HTML5 based animations for your websites or for your apps or whatever you're building. You can build apps as well. So today, right, if you're going to start an animation, probably best to go ahead and start with Adobe Animate. All right, just making sure I get all the other questions out of the way. Yep, if you've used Adobe InDesign, it will be very familiar to you when you start in Adobe Muse. Hello, Russia, what's going on? What's new in Adobe Muse 2 days ago? If there was an update 2 days ago, I believe there was. It was just a bug fix. Does Adobe Animate work to animate 3D models for games, an example? I don't know. I'm not an Adobe Animate person. So I've beyond maybe 5 seconds or 2 minutes here and there in what used to be Flash and now Animate. I haven't really spent a lot of time in it. It's not my tool. So you'd be better off asking someone who's experienced with Animate. It is part of the Creative Cloud. Yes, all of the tools we're talking about are part of Creative Cloud. So whether it's Animate CC, Muse CC, or Photoshop, Lightroom, or anything else. Okay, I'm just making sure I get all the other questions out of the way before we get started. You guys are asking some good ones, so I'll take the time to ask the pre-questions before we get going. So, and if you're just getting here, let me do a quick reset. My name is Terry White, Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist for Adobe. Today we're going to be spending the next almost 2 hours talking about Adobe Muse from start to finish, from scratch, showing you how the product works, showing you some examples of what you can do. I'll build a sample site based on some assets that I have already. But again, the example that I use is, don't think of it as, oh, I can only build that kind of site. You can build whatever kind of site you want. I just had to pick something. And if you're watching the replay, again, I'm addressing people in the comments. So this is something that happens when we're live, because I've got to pay attention to the live folks, because that's why we're live. So if you're watching the replay, you could maybe scrub through until you start seeing Muse, unless you want to hear the questions and the answers. Is Muse free? No, Muse is not free. Muse is part of Creative Cloud. You can do a free trial, though. You can do a free trial for 30 days. All right, and Victoria just put up the link to, or someone, no, the Nightbot just put up the link to the trial. All right. Well, and also except for all those free mobile apps that are free. Okay, so it looks like now people are just commenting. So it looks like we got to the end of the questions. So let me go ahead and get going here. All right, so I'm going to switch gears so you guys can see my display. And correct, Bridge is not free either. All right, so here we are in Adobe Muse CC. As you can see, I just launched the application. I don't have anything open. The only reason I've got recent sites is because I've got recent sites that I've worked on. So if this were empty, as most people would have, that would mean you're just getting started. I'm in the latest version. I believe I did the update from a couple of days ago. Let me check. Oh no, I didn't do the update from a couple of days ago. So talk amongst yourselves. I'm gonna break tradition. I'm gonna do an update while we wait. So let's go ahead and do that update. So what this means is that there was an update since the last time I did the update, and I'm going to go ahead and do the update now. Yep. And that will then hopefully do the update without causing me any grief. So we'll let it do that update. And while it's doing the update, I will show you a couple of things that we're going to be using as examples. Some things that will be going on in the background. I don't know why it's waiting. I did quit out of Muse, didn't I? Yeah, I did. All right, so we'll give that a second. If that doesn't, then we'll cancel it and use the version. You should never update before a 2-hour thing, by the way. So that's what I meant by breaking tradition. So here's a couple of websites that I've done in Muse. This is one for a user group that I founded, a little bit over 20, 25 years ago. I'm not really part of the group anymore. I'm not in Detroit anymore, but I still kind of like to play around with the design of the site since I'm kind of the one volunteer still doing that. So I recently converted this website over from a fixed layout site to a responsive site. So in other words, as soon as the update became available for Muse, I went ahead and did that update. All right, so let's see if we got another question here. Can Muse create e-commerce site? Muse can create any site you want. Now, what you're asking really is there an e-commerce feature in Muse? So besides PayPal and shopping carts, there's really no other e-commerce built in. However, there are several third-party widgets and add-ons for different shopping carts and e-commerce and blogging and all kinds of things that Muse doesn't do. So you got to remember, Muse is like, we got to have something to start with. So Muse is the program that'll let me design the site any way I want, publish it, post it anywhere I want. And if there's specific things I need to do that Muse doesn't do, that's when I look to the third-party community for those add-ons. So if I want to do e-commerce, if I want to do a blog, if I want to do a video background or something like that where there's no built-in feature, then I just go grab a widget, add that into my site, and do it that way. What else? Just like Photoshop doesn't do everything. That's why they're third-party plugins for it. All right. Can you see an example of a Muse site? Yes, right here. This is one I'm looking at right now. I was about to go walk you through it, but I'm just making sure I get all the questions out of the way up front. You can oh, by the way, if you go to muse.adobe.com, there's always a site of the day. So if you go to site of the day, you can always see several examples. And these are customer sites. These aren't ones put out by Adobe. These are ones that Adobe featured. So there are dozens, if not hundreds of sites here. 37 pages of sites, so probably over 100 sites that were built in Muse. So anytime you want to look at something, just go look at something for inspiration here at muse.adobe.com and click on Site of the Day. So that hopefully will answer the question, hey, show me something that was actually built with Muse. hundreds of examples. Go look, and these are all by different people, different countries, different examples, different ways that Muse was used. So that hopefully answers that. All right, so is that Charlie Nicole? I'm sorry, however your name is, it's all bunched together, so I can't tell. But what I'm going to call you Charlie for now. What Charlie's asking is, and this is a problem I actually ran into too, where he said he did a responsive site, he did it down to mobile, and then there was like something that still looked like it made it extend past the design. I had that exact same problem, and what that is, probably 100% of the time, but I'm going to say 99% of the time, is there's some element still hanging off the edge of the design. For me, it was some long text frame, and the handles for the frame were past the page. So Muse has no choice but to write the code so that that shows. And when I looked at it on my phone, it was like my page was like over here, and there was this white space, this white column. That was that handle. As soon as I fixed that handle, my page extended out the way it was supposed to. So just click on everything on your page when you run into a problem like that, and make sure nothing extends past the edge of the design. If something extends past the edge of the design, usually it's a blank frame or handles for something, some widget, that will cause the problem you're asking about. Okay, hey Rufus, what's going on? All right, let me check to make sure my update's running here. And my update's done, so I'm going to go ahead and launch Muse. And here it comes. All right, back to where we were. And just making sure I didn't miss anything else. Have any of my sites been featured on the site of the day? I don't know, because I don't check it every day. I don't know if my sites were ever featured or not. That's been going on for years. So I don't think so, but I don't, I work for Adobe, so they would more than likely feature a customer over an employee. So no, I'm going to say no, that none of my sites have been featured. What do you guys mean when you say you don't have to code it? Well, we're about to see that in just a minute. All right. How do you make websites live on the internet? You upload them, which we're going to see in a minute. So again, now what's happening is everyone's excited in the chat about things that they want to know how to do. And I'm spending more time answering things that I would ultimately show if you would let me get to them. So these are all great questions, but I don't want to go over here and then you say, well, he's not answering my question. So I'm answering your questions, but if I never get over here, then you'll never see what you're asking. All right, so with that said, let me get to what I want to show you so you can hopefully get a lot of things that you're asking shown. How is Muse different than Dreamweaver? Muse lets you design websites without having to ever touch the code. There's no code window, there's no code view, there's no code design. Dreamweaver lets you also design websites with the ability to not have to touch the code if you don't really want to, or the ability to touch the code. So for people that really want to get into the nitty gritty of a website and they're coders and they want to do every aspect and tweak and work on more code than actual design, then you're probably a candidate for Dreamweaver. If you say, I don't know code, I'm not really interested in learning code, but I still got to have sites I need to work on because I don't have budget to hire someone, that's what Muse is for. Or I just want to make my own sites. That's what Muse is for. So that's why there are two products, because there are two types of customers. I'm more of a Muse customer than I would probably ever be of a Dreamweaver customer. While I do understand code to some degree, it's not something I enjoy doing. It's not something I enjoy writing. So I love Muse because I can just get in and design and make my site and let Muse handle optimizing and making great code. versus someone that likes to tinker, likes to tweak, likes to write their own, likes to make it exactly what they want it to be by writing code. Two products for two audiences. Is Dreamweaver free? No, it isn't. Okay, back to where we were. So I left off here. I don't want to leave here, but let's do one thing real quick. So someone said examples. Again, if we go back to muse.adobe.com, you'll see things that the Muse team has created. If you want to see what customers are doing with Muse, just click on Site of the Day, and there are dozens, if not hundreds of examples of sites, 37 pages worth, and you can even filter now on the kind of site you might want to see. So retail, someone was asking about retail. Here's some retail examples of people that I'm assuming if they're retail, they've done shopping, they've done e-commerce. So just go check them out. Here's a site that I was showing you just a minute ago. This is a site that I've maintained now for the last few years. I converted it over to Muse when Muse first became available. I've been tweaking it and working on it in Muse ever since. It's macgroup.org. It's a nonprofit users group in Michigan, my former group. I still do the website as a volunteer because I just like doing it. However, what's nice about this particular website is I like doing the work of the design, but I don't want to do the day-to-day when they want to change their meeting. So they haven't changed their meeting for March yet, and they do that. They do it using a feature called in-browser editing. So they can go in and change the text and pictures to their heart's content. I do the design. That way I'm not having to maintain and make every little change they want. So that's another feature of Muse. Hopefully we'll get to, if not today, another day. This site I did convert over to responsive. So as I continue to make it smaller, it will continue to adapt to what I'm doing with the browser window. So it goes from a regular menu down to a mobile menu, down to icons, down to whatever as a responsive site. And it is a multi-page site with menu options and different ways to work. So again, that's just an example of taking a site that I started out years ago, fixed layout, as of January 29th, I believe it was, converted it over to a responsive site so it works on any device, basically. All right, now let's get to Muse and start from scratch. So now I'm in the latest, greatest update that just came out a couple days ago. And you can put code in Muse, yes. You can export and open it in Dreamweaver if you want. What does it mean to design for mobile first? We'll get to that in just a second. And let's see, make sure I got everything else. Cool, glad, Gel, that you learned a lot. All right. Okay. All right, I think I got caught up. And now let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so when you launch Muse, you'll get some resources here that you can go check out. And of course, you'll be able to create a new site from scratch. And if you've been working on a site like I have, you can go ahead and open those sites up. So your site is really like a Muse document that you keep working on and building things in. So if I, for example, wanted to show you that site that I was working on, just showed you in the browser, this is what it looks like in Muse. So it shows me kind of a flow chart or a design view first of each page. It shows me the master page where I go build all the elements that I want to be on every page. It shows me the kind of the hierarchy of each page, and it even shows me pages that I've put in as placeholders for elements that really weren't built with Muse. So for example, this site has a blog that's a WordPress blog. Has nothing to do with Muse. So what I did is I wanted that blog to be a part of the navigation. So I created a page for it, but I took that page, or I don't export that page as part of Muse. I just make it part of the menu. And then I link to the actual blog. And of course on the blog, it links back to the regular website. So even though Muse doesn't have a content management system, that doesn't mean you can't take advantage of other things that are already built and already on the web. For example, like a blog. All right, And now there's no more for this site. I used to have a desktop, tablet, and phone layout because now it's all responsive. I don't have to have that anymore because now each page is a responsive page, and therefore the content only exists once. If they want to change something, or if I want to change something, I only have to change it on the one page, and I'm done on the one layout. All right, so that was just kind of a quick look at what a site looks like that's already done. We're going to again close this site, and we're going to go ahead and start from scratch. Don't want to save any changes. Let's go ahead and open it up. When I create a new site, okay, let me get the, I still see lots of questions and or confusion about Muse and Dreamweaver and working together. The two products are not designed to be used together. That doesn't mean you can't. They're just not designed that way. Because again, they address two different customers. If you're a Dreamweaver user, use Dreamweaver. I don't see why you would even use Muse unless you're saying Muse is so easy, I'd rather use that and then take it over to Dreamweaver. And that's fine. But if that's the case, there's no connection, there's no tie. Because most Muse users aren't using Dreamweaver. And most Dreamweaver users, aren't using Muse. So there's really no, because they don't think they need it. There's no reason to if they already know how to use Dreamweaver. So here's the only way you would go from one to the other. You could build a site in Muse, like that Mac group site I just showed you. I could export that entire site as a folder of HTML. Now it has no more connection to Muse. Muse says, I don't see you anymore, la 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 la, you don't exist, because that folder is just a folder that got exported. Now that folder of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, images, and everything else, I can open that up in Dreamweaver and do whatever else I want to do to it. I could add shopping carts. I could tweak the code. I could do whatever. But once I do anything in that folder, it doesn't come back over to Muse. So it's a one-way trip. It's a one-way export. There's no linking. There's no back and forth. It's you either working in Muse or you're working in Dreamweaver. And if you want it to start in Muse, or maybe a customer starts in Muse and wants to hand it over to a developer, they export a folder and that developer takes it over. But that's never, that whatever's done with that folder is not coming back to Muse. So let's, again, end that conversation, because that's all there is to that conversation. There's no other tie, no other connection, no other link, no other way, round tripping. It's one or the other, unless you want to do that one-way workflow, that one-time workflow. Because again, once that person starts making changes to all that code with the exported folder, it's not on Muse anymore, meaning those changes. So exporting a new copy out of Muse is just going to confuse the process, because there have been a bunch of changes that have already been made that didn't get made in Muse. So it's a one-time, one-way trip. Hopefully that answers it. All right. There's no database in Muse, so hopefully that answers that. It's all HTML, meaning there's no database, content management system, built-in shopping, e-commerce, because all of those require some type of database on the back end. Muse doesn't make a back end. It doesn't do SQL, doesn't do WordPress, doesn't do databases. So hopefully that answers all those questions. All right. Continue on. All right, so now we've got our new site window open. And now that we've got our new site window open, it's asking, and by the way, they simplified this new site window to make it easier for people to get started. One of the ways that people will now most likely want to get started is with a responsive design. So it now defaults to a fluid width. Fluid meaning the browser can, or the design will adapt to the different widths of browsers. You can still make a fixed width. One of the first questions I got when I showed this the first time was, hey, can I still just make a mobile optimized site like I used to in Muse? Yes, you can. If I choose fixed width and I go back into the settings and I want to go ahead and make a fixed width site at a specific width, I can. But Most people will, again, want that fluid width by default, so now that's why it's our default. Columns are really for design, meaning if you know you're going to have multiple things on the page and you want to keep them aligned, then chances are you're going to use columns to do that. So I usually like to do 5 or 6 columns so that I have some visual guides on the page to design with. Now, I could just click OK and move on. But there is one more setting I like to change. Hang on for a second. Let's look over here. You can host your HTML wherever you want. Muse has no restriction over hosting. So you could use whatever hosting company that supports hosting of HTML pages. And we'll get to that when it's time to export and publish. Okay. All right, so next, advanced settings. Now, minimum width is what you expect to be the minimum size width of a device that would be looking at your page. And traditionally, that's been 320 pixels. Think back to iPhone 4. That would be 320 pixel width size, meaning minimum. You can also do maximum width to whatever you want. And if your maximum width, you say, seems low, crank it up. By the way, so again, I'm teaching how to get started. If you want to make any changes to numbers you see here because you know better, then change them. This is a getting started, just showing you defaults. If I spend time tweaking and changing every little thing and explaining every little thing in great detail, we'll only get through this box in 2 hours. So people that are saying, well, that seems low, that means to me that you already know what you're doing. Do it. No, if you want that number higher, make that number higher. Now, let me explain something about that number. Maximum width is not necessarily saying that your page can't be wider than 960. It's just saying that's what it's going to optimize the maximum width of the design for. If you want to extend it beyond that, you can. You can make any page any width you want. So 960 doesn't seem that low when you think about the average monitor size, average display size. So again, we just spent time talking about something that one person already knows. So let's move on. All right, next. And the reason I went into advanced settings is because there's one thing that I do change here, and that is I always change it to high DPI. I wish I could, I'm talking to you, Muse developers, developer team, I wish I could set that as my default, because I change it every single time. And what this means is that I want Muse to make a site that's optimized for both standard displays and now all the newer high DPI displays like Apple's Retina displays and Windows high DPI displays and mobile devices with high DPI. So if you choose that option, the reason it's not the default is because, yes, it does make all your graphics that it optimizes, it makes them in 2 sizes. One for the high DPI displays, one for the lower res displays. So it will have to do that. And that's saying, well, we don't want to do that by default. And people complain that they have twice as many graphics. It's okay. I'm okay with that. Let me go ahead and make that my default. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And that will build or take you to your design view. And it will make your first default web home page. And it will also give you your default master page. Your master page, like I said or showed on that other site, are all the elements that you want to be consistent throughout the majority of your pages. You can have multiple masters. So you can say, well, maybe the home page gets its own master, and then this next group of pages gets a different master, and this next group of pages gets a different master. Or they all get the same master. It's up to you. All right, quickly, let's go over here. Is this a hobby or a day job for me? I work full-time for Adobe, so no, this is not a hobby. All right, moving on. Okay, so you'll typically start on the master page. Could you jump right in and just say, nope, I don't need a master. I'm going to put everything on one page and design it on that one page? Absolutely. But if you're going to have more than one page, then you probably want to do some things on the master page first. So it really depends on, now we're trying to decide what kind of site do you want. What's popular today are sites that are just one long page with navigation that jumps down the page and scrolls the page back up and down. And if that were all I was going to do, then I really don't need a master page, because the master page is really for when you're going to have two or more pages that are going to have the same thing. If everything's going to be on the one page, then don't bother with the master. Put everything on the home page. But if you're going to have more than one page, then put things on the masters. So it really depends on what you're building. So let's say for this example, we're going to build multiple pages. Maybe if time permits, we'll do another example where it's all one page. Either way, it's up to you. So if I were going to do two or more pages, then I would open up the master by double-clicking on it and putting the things on this page that I want to be consistent. Now, someone asked earlier in the comments, what does it mean, design mobile first? What does that mean? And that's a concept that is, if you ask most experts, and I don't consider myself an expert at web design, I don't do this for a living. This is something I do out of necessity. But if you ask most experts, if you read most books on responsive web design now, they will more than likely, 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5 people will tell you, start with mobile first and build out. And it took me a while to agree to that. Meaning, because I was coming at it from a different approach. I was coming at it from the approach of, I got this existing website that I need to convert to responsive. It's already built. It's already got stuff all over the page. So for me to go start with mobile first is a lot harder in that example than starting with a blank page and starting with mobile first. So I didn't agree at first because I wasn't doing a new site. If I'm doing a new site, I do agree. Because here's the analogy that makes it easier to understand. If you think of your mobile device, your phone, or someone's phone, that's going to be probably the smallest or one of the smallest devices that people see it on. If you build everything that you want people to be able to see on that smallest device first, it's like moving into a small home. If you move into a small home, you've only got so much room for so much stuff, so much furniture, so many tables and chairs and sofas and beds and so forth and so on. So you make everything fit. You make it fit because you have no choice. You have to fit it in a smaller area. Then when it comes time to build or move to a bigger home or a bigger space or bigger apartment or whatever it is, oh, I've got an extra room now. I can spread some stuff out. I can move stuff around. My living room is now twice the size. I don't necessarily have to put twice as much stuff in it. I can spread the stuff out. So that is actually easier than taking a 4,000 square foot home and consolidating it down to a 1-bedroom apartment. So if you think about it that way, that is easier to design for. And I agree. That's probably the best approach. So it just really depends on where you're coming from. Yeah, and again, none of this is a law. So someone just said, it's easier to make things smaller than to make things bigger, in my opinion. I still do desktop to mobile. It works out for me. Exactly. It works out for that person. I will do it either way. It just depends on the situation. So I'm just telling you what experts say. I'm not saying you have to do it that way. You have to do it this way. Do it whichever way works best for you and your content and your site. Okay, so Phostography is saying something about an error they're getting. Every time they upload a Muse site to a folder, it gives them a validation error. That would be, again, it's not something I can work out with you here. That would be, I'd contact Adobe Care and customer support and see if they can work that out with you. I don't have that problem, so I would. It's probably something simple, but I can't imagine why that would be an issue. All right, let's see what else. Can you add a hyperlink to an anchor point within a Muse widget? I've never tried it, so I don't know. I don't know. I can't think of anything that would stop you from doing that, but I've not tested it to see if that works. Okay, moving on. All right, so now on this blank master page, and on the master page for this site, you notice now that we told it to be a fluid width, that there is this breakpoint bar. That's what we call it, a breakpoint bar. And the breakpoint bar starts at the default 960 that Muse defaulted to. And I can go wider. I'm not stuck at 960. I can do it any way I want. Or I can go smaller. So if I were going to design for mobile first, and again, that is your choice, do it any way you want, then what I might do is say, okay, let's go down to the smallest that this might be. Let's go down to 360. I'm sorry, 320. And we can go ahead and add a breakpoint. I don't know if I got it right on 320 or not, but if not, I can always do it mathematically. Let's see. There we go, 320. So now, once I get down to the 320 width, where I might want to start designing, then it won't stay there. In other words, I've just kind of made my browser or my design view smaller, and now it's up to me to say, do I want this to be a breakpoint? Meaning this is where I want my design to start. If so, then I would click this plus sign right here. And this plus sign allows me to create a new breakpoint. So if I create a new breakpoint, now I've told Muse that this will be a defining point of my website that things will lock into or adjust to. So at 320 pixels, which again, average smallest browser on a phone. Yes, it could be smaller. Yes, it could be larger, but average, 320. Okay, so at this point, now it's up to me to start deciding what I want on this master. And by the way, setting breakpoints for masters don't automatically set breakpoints for the main pages. It shows them to you, but it doesn't automatically set them. Because breakpoints are really about the content on those specific pages. So content on the master is likely to be totally different than the content that's on the actual pages, because you're going to have different content in addition to what's on the master. So for example, let's say that I now want to put some things on here. And let me explain what these guides are. So there's a guide for top of page. There's a guide for header, and this guide moves up and down. There's a guide for footer, and there's a guide for bottom of page and bottom of browser. They're right now together, but you can separate them if you want. All right, what do these guides mean? Most of them don't force anything except for footer. Footer's the only one that forces something. Because what footer says is anything below this guide is always at the bottom of the content. So if I make something a footer item, I'm saying no matter how short or how tall that page is, whatever, and even if there's a bunch of white space, put whatever I put below this line at the bottom of the content every single time. That's what the footer's for. The others are just guidelines. They're just there to let you know, hey, you've defined a consistent header. You want to put the things that you want to always be above the content above this line, but it won't force it. It's up to you. Okay, so next, let's go ahead and say that I want to put something in the header. I'm going to go ahead and just draw out a rectangle. And these guides are just guides. They're not the law. I can make the content fit within the guides or not. It's up to me. And in this case, what I want to do is I want to make this guide, or I want to make this rectangle do something as far as the design of the page. And notice that when I drew that rectangle, that this box activated, resize. So this is new in Muse, and this is mainly for sites that are going to be fluid width. So what I've said here is that by default, this will be a responsive width element, meaning as the page gets wider or smaller, that rectangle will size accordingly in respect of the original size to the boundaries of the page or the location on the page. In this case, what I want to do is I want to stretch it to be the full width of the browser, meaning however long that browser or wide that browser is, that's how wide that rectangle will be. And so now if we go back out and look, it automatically made it fit from left to right, all the way to the edge of the page. And I'm going to go ahead and make it fit all the way at the top. Now that's manual, that's up to me. And I'm going to go ahead and just bring it down to the header. So now I've got a rectangle there that fits that entire space. So what that means is if I were to drag this out, that rectangle just keeps getting bigger. All right. Now, at this point, I also can now put whatever I want in that rectangle. So it could be a color, it could be a gradient, it could be an image. I'm trying to think, is there anything else? Gradient, color, image. Color, image. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Gradient, color, or image. So I want to fill it with a color. Randomly picking a color here. Not really important to the task. But let's go ahead and say that we want to be a nice, we'll make it a nice blue. All right. So now we've got a nice blue rectangle that will expand the width of the browser accordingly. Okay, so at this point, now let's say that we also want a logo to be in that area as well. So that logo is going to be something I need to grab and pull in. Now, up until now, you would go up to your file menu and choose place or drag and drop to bring that element in. And you can still do it that way. If you want to place something just like you do in InDesign, go to your file menu, place, go grab a web-friendly graphic or a PSD. So what I mean by web-friendly is something that works well on the web, a JPEG, a PNG or PNG file, a GIF, GIF. It could be an older Flash animation if you want it, so a SWIFT file. It could be an OAM file, which would be a newer animation that's based on HTML5. It can be SVG now, so it could be an SVG scalable vector graphic logo. It could also be a PSD. So PSD, out of all those formats I just mentioned, is probably the one that you're thinking, huh? Why would I put a Photoshop, big heavy Photoshop layered file on my web design? Because obviously it's not going to export out a big heavy PSD. It's going to optimize it for the web, but still give you the flexibility to edit it with all the layers in Photoshop anytime you need to make changes to it. So that's an option. So instead of doing place, what I like to do is introduce you to my newer way to do this, and that is using CC libraries. With CC libraries, I now can sync content from any of my other applications to a library that now shows up in Muse. And this is something I've been waiting for a long time. Muse had its own library prior to CC libraries for the same reason, because you want to keep things in a library that you use over and over and over again. Now those library items can be from the CC libraries. So for example, somewhere in here, in this particular library, show 10 more remaining items. There it is. So somewhere in here, I knew I had an Altura logo. I have a dark one and a white one. So I'm going to go ahead and pull over the white one. And now it gives me the placement icon, and I can place that logo anywhere I want on the page. So I can place it down here, which wouldn't make much sense on a white background, on a white logo on a white background, wouldn't be able to see it. And I can go ahead and drag it out, and it will keep it proportional. So when I let go, it'll go ahead and just size it in. Now that particular file is probably a PNG that has transparency. If I were really doing that logo and that logo came from Illustrator, at this point, what I would do now is go to Illustrator, open up that logo in its true vector form, and I would export out an SVG. Because this is a PNG file, so it's, even though it's transparent, it's a fixed pixel resolution. So if I make that logo too big, it's going to look pixelated. But if I bring in an SVG, I can scale that logo as much as I want, and it's still going to look great. So just keep that in mind. And if you do scale something over 100%, meaning it's now bigger than it originally was, Muse will continue to warn you every time you publish that site. Hey, you've got images that are being upsampled, and they may not look as good. And so it'll just keep telling you until you fix it. So in this case, I can scale that as big as I want or as small as I want. And if I go over to, let's see, there should be a way for me to see that. If I go over to my assets panel, this particular one, oh, this one is SVG. So this one is an Illustrator file. It automatically converted to SVG. So we're good. I thought it might have been a ping. So Illustrator file came in, converted to SVG from the library. We're good to go. All right, so now I can make that as big or as small as I want. It'll keep re-optimizing and making that SVG, and away we go. Now, this becomes now the next couple of things you want to think about. As we know that this browser width can get bigger and smaller, what we want to now decide is, does the logo get bigger and smaller? And does the logo move around as the browser gets bigger and smaller? So for example, we can set it to, and it defaults to this responsive width and height. That means that it will respond to the browser width and make that logo bigger and smaller. And that may or may not be what you want. In most cases, I think for logos, it probably isn't what you want. But that's up to you. So if I go ahead and make that bigger now, see what's happening? It's starting to do weird things and making that logo bigger, and that's not what I want. I don't want the logo to grow. And also I want the logo to stay put. So in this case, I want to do two things. I want to select the logo, and I want to turn that to none. Don't resize it. I'm happy with the logo the size it is. And the next thing is we want to talk about pinning. Now there's two types of pins, meaning this is the keep it in place part. Pin it the old way, which means keep it pinned so it stays in the location no matter what, or pin it responsively to the container or the page. So and again, every situation is different. You'll have to experiment with which way works best for your design and your object. So for example, when I'm doing responsive design, I typically pin things responsively, but sometimes I've had to pin it the other way, especially for things that I wanted to stay centered in the footer, so forth and so on, a certain way. So at the bottom of the page, always stay in that spot. So it depends. In this case, and that box is just really not working right for me either. Wait, hang on, why is that resizing? It shouldn't be. Shouldn't be resizing. Did I not turn that to none? I did. Why is that getting bigger? All right, let's try it this way. All right, something weird is going on. That shouldn't be resizing at all, but it is. All right, told it to be none. Don't resize. This is okay if it does. I'm not sure why that's resizing. Let me go ahead and size it back down to what I would want. All right. Oh, I know. Never mind. I know why. And this is one of those catch-22s to designing mobile first. Because I designed and I said start fluid, it had already made that 960 breakpoint. So the minute I put this in the 320 breakpoint, it's also in the 960 breakpoint. So if we go out here to this breakpoint, see it's still set to responsive width and height. Got to remember to turn that off in both breakpoints. That's why I said, oh, once I get out of 320, I can do whatever I want. I can get bigger. Got to remember to make sure it's turned off in both breakpoints because that breakpoint was already established. So, okay, so now if we do this, and by the way, if we do that, okay, we're good there. Okay, so now if we do this, it should stay put, and it did. So that was why. It was freaking me out at first. I didn't know why it was doing that. But now it's doing what it's supposed to do because now in both breakpoints, it's set not to be scaled. And that is another thing, again, to have to think about when you're doing responsive. Now, had I started the responsive, never mind. I'm not even going to say it that way. All right, so now let's go in and do. So we put in a logo. We put in our rectangle. We could of course duplicate that rectangle and have it be in the footer as well. So let's do that. Just going to hold down my Option or Alt key and drag it down. And I'm going to go ahead and say that this is. I'm right click on it. And I'm going to say it's a footer item. Until I tell it it's a footer item, it's just at the bottom of the page. So it will stay in that spot and not always go down to the bottom unless I do this. Now that I've told it it's a footer item, it knows to stay in the footer. So at this point, if we now do this, and again, it's only there in that breakpoint. We got to make sure we fix it in both breakpoints. Where is it? Hang on. Let's go ahead. I don't know if I lost it or. Hang on. Let me one way to check it. Let's go to our layers. Oh, I see. So it's there. It's just not moved down yet in this breakpoint. So there it is, and we need to move it down. All right. So same thing, because it treats each breakpoint differently. It doesn't know what you want in each one until you tell it. So same thing. We're going to say make this a footer item, and we're going to pull it down in this breakpoint. And now we should be good to go. All right, so if we go down, yep, we're good to go now. Both breakpoints, the logo doesn't move. The logo stays responsively pinned to wherever we tell it. And the rectangles now scale and move or respond accordingly. Okay, so a quick look just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Absolutely, Rufus, SVG does rule. Can't you just copy and paste it so it's a smart object? I'm not sure what you're referring to. What's the it? There are no smart objects in Muse, so no, not in Muse. What else? Okay, nothing else. All right. So now we've taken care of a couple things on the master. All we've done is just put a couple rectangles, made sure they're responsive, made sure the logo's in place, make sure it doesn't move around. And again, you have to keep in mind you've got 2 breakpoints. So you've got to make sure that both breakpoints are doing what you want. At this point, you might now go out to the site and you might say, okay, my site looks like it's supposed to. And if I want to view this online, I can go ahead and open it up and I can preview page in browser. And once I preview the page in browser, it will actually show it to me. So there it is. That's all we've done so far. There's nothing on that page. It gets nice and responsive and shows it to me the way it looks. Awesome. Now at this point, let's say it's time to start putting in some content and some pages. So if we go back to the website itself, there's our home page, which we haven't done anything else with. We can either A, start putting things on the home page, or B, start making the other pages first. It's up to you. So let's say we're going to make some other pages first, just to kind of make it consistent. And this also will give us a chance to work on navigation. So let's go ahead and design out or spec out our pages. So at this point, I want to notice if I hover over the home page or the master, I get these plus signs to be able to add additional pages. So since my home page is going to be first, we're going to go ahead and click next, and whatever that next page is going to be. About us. Products, services, videos, portfolio, essay, whatever it's going to be, whatever your site is made up of. We'll just do some common ones just to get it over with. So products. Next one might be about us. The next one might be contact us. The next one might be videos. The next one might be, I don't know, whatever else. If I want to move them around now and say, oh, you know what? Videos should probably be next to products. So let's move that one around. I can rearrange the order of the pages. So now products and videos are next to each other. Or maybe videos should be as a sub page to products. So just drag it underneath and it becomes a sub page to products, whatever you want. Maybe I want the videos to also have another page called testimonials. Testimonials. Now I have a testimonials page. So again, any order, stacking order you want. So I'm going to go ahead and put videos back up. We'll keep it a flat design for now. And maybe we'll put testimonials here. About us, contact us. Okay. So, and by the way, I know what I would be thinking if I were watching this. Why is the blue bar not at the bottom of the page? Because once you open the page, you'll notice that the page doesn't really go all the way down that far. So it's just a kind of a visual illusion. And when we previewed it in the browser, it was at the bottom. So it's always at the bottom. If I move the bottom up or down, that blue bar is a footer item that stays at the bottom, and everything else responds accordingly. All right, so let's go back. And now that we've got our pages, let's go back and talk about navigation. So let's go build some navigation for those pages. Now, Muse lets you do navigation two ways. Using the menu widget, or just manually designing any menus you want. So let's go back to the master, because that's probably the best place to put the navigation on. And let's say that we want to put some navigation on that looks great for a mobile device. We're at 320. So at this point, now I've got to decide which navigation do I want to use. Manual, custom, build it from scratch, or the built-in menu widgets, or a combination of how I want that widget to look. Now, in a mobile skinny window like this, or a small display window like this, typically the big, long desktop menus aren't feasible. So for example, if I were to drag out, if I were to go to the widget library and I were to go to menus, and I were to drag out the horizontal menu, this is what would happen. It just won't fit comfortably. It just doesn't look right. Now I could keep messing with it, scale it down, make everything a little smaller, and maybe I can get it to fit the width of 320. But it just is really not best for mobile. The other thing you have to think about is that on a smaller screen, especially go back to iPhone 4 size, that really small width, you got this big finger, and tapping little menus is a pain in the butt for anyone trying to navigate your site. So let's not do this. Let's not use the horizontal menu. Instead, let's build a more mobile-friendly menu that, using an icon most of us are used to seeing now, and making things nice and big and what I call finger-friendly. So to do that, we're going to do a couple things first. We're going to go in and we're going to use a one of the widgets, not the menu widget first. We're going to use one of the panels. So if we go to panels, there's two panel widgets. There's accordion and tabbed. Let me make sure. How can I make a nested pages without getting the main pages to be clickable? All right. There's a couple ways. A, you can build your own menu, then therefore the main page is not clickable. B, you could possibly exclude the main page. I'd have to think about that. I don't know if you exclude it from the navigation or from the menu, would you then be able to still get to the subpages? And I'm thinking not. So you may not be able to do that with the menu widget, but of course you could do it with your own custom widget or custom menu. So for example, let's say that yes, we want the hamburger menu for the win, and let's go ahead and drag out the accordion panel. Now, anytime you drag out a widget, and thank God the Muse team did this now, it used to always, and still does, populate with examples. So it always usually does 3, and in this case it's 3 accordion panels, and each one's filled with text and maybe images or placeholders or whatever. And you just say, wow, that's great for me as a beginner. Now I know what I can do. But then once I know what I can do, I don't need this every single time. I don't need to see 3 panels with stuff in them that I have to painstakingly delete, 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 constantly every time I use the accordion. So there's a couple options now for all of the widgets that have content pre-populated in them. So one way is, I think you can do it from the menu. I never do it from the menu. So bear with me for a second because I never do it this way. Oh, maybe you can't even do it from the menu. I don't know. I've never seen it in the menu. I've never looked for it, but it doesn't look like it's there anyway. So anyway, this is the hidden way. Right click, and when you right click, you can do two things. Clear all styling, clear widget contents. My favorite Muse additions over the years. So clear widget contents. Get rid of all that extra stuff I don't need. Now it's still styled, meaning it still has the white background. It still has whatever font they've used. It still has all that stuff. So even though I cleared the content, it broke it down to just one, I still want to right click on it one more time and say clear all styling too. Make it transparent, take everything out of it, except for one thing. For whatever reason, this one widget still keeps that headline in there, which I still have to manually take out. But that's okay. That's a lot easier than what we used to have to do, especially for clearing all the styling. All right, so now I've made this item. And here's another point I want to make while I've got this on screen the way it is. See how that frame is sticking off the edge of the page, right? Watch what happens if you leave it like that. Even though there's nothing in there and you can't see it. Let's preview page in browser for a second. And all I want to do is I want to get this URL. I'm going to take it over to Safari because Safari's got this cool developer mode where you can test responsive design. And okay, so I'm in this site now, and if I go down to that smaller iPhone 4, and see now it's not going to do it. But sometimes what would happen is your design, like your content would stop short of the edge of the window because it's making room for that handle that's sticking off the page. So I can't tell you how many people have tweeted, or reached out to me on Facebook or whatever saying, hey, I designed a mobile page, but it shrinks it even further than it's supposed to. And 9 times out of 10, because it happened to me, some handle is sticking off the edge of the page. So even if you can't see it, if I click off of it, and if I hide the frame edges, I wouldn't be able to see it. So a graphic, a slideshow, a text handle, something like that, if it's sticking off the edge like that, it will be doomed for you. So for example, if I do this, let's make some text. We stick the text off the edge, and you think, oh, cool, text, no problem. And then we preview that page. Let's see if it does it on this one. And again, let's go back to Safari. Let's try this again. Yeah, see, Safari is good about not doing it, but your phone will actually make that short. All right, so anyway, don't leave handles sticking off the edge of your design. It will be death for your site, and it'll bug you, and you won't know why it's doing it, and it'll drive you crazy. Okay, so let's go ahead and just make this not stick off the edge. And we can make this as narrow as we need it to be. And what I'm doing is, you notice this widget, this accordion panel has two things. It has what we call a trigger. That's this shorter box up here. And then it has the content area, which would actually be the menu. So we're going to take this widget. We're going to move it right above the bar here. Let it hang down. We're going to pull it down a little bit just to give us enough room. And then we're going to drop an actual menu in here. We're going to use the vertical menu from Muse. When I drag the vertical menu, notice that frame lights up when I'm dragging over it. Now I can drop it in there and it will be in that frame. All right, so now that will be a real menu that works. We can design that menu any way we want. So if I don't like, here, let's do some design work on it. I don't like that gray box behind all the items. So I can select that box. There it is, fill. And I can say no fill, or I could say this is a different color fill, or I could say it's the same color as that. I can do whatever I want, change it to whatever I want. If I don't like that font, no problem. I can keep clicking till I get to the text, and I can change the font to whatever I want. We'll get to fonts in a minute. I don't want to spend any time on it just yet. But let's say we want it to be a nice sans serif font. If I want it to be right justified, I can. Although that would look weird. Let's not right justify it. If I want these to be bigger, I can make them bigger so that they're more finger friendly, like I mentioned earlier. Nice big buttons to tap on. I can do that. So let's go ahead and select the menu. Drill down, pull it up some, move it over this way. Here's another thing that you'll learn about accordions. I'm tempted to put the menu to the right edge and make the frame smaller. But when you do that, it pushes the content outside. So push it to the left and then make the frame smaller from the left. And it will push, oh, not that frame, this frame. It'll push everything over to the right. It's just a little quirky thing in Muse. All right, so now I can pull that up. I don't need it to be any bigger than that. So now I've got my menu ready to go. The only thing is, two problems. I don't want the menu showing all the time, number one. Number two, you wouldn't know that menu was there once I collapse it because there's nothing to tap on. There's nothing indicating that that's a menu. Number three, here's another big one. Go back to the menu itself. And this one always, hang on, looks like they, okay, yeah, if you're doing a manual menu, or if you're doing the icon for your menu, make sure your icon is not set to be responsive width. The menus are fine, they're okay, but if I've got one where I did a custom menu on that Mac group site, and I forgot to turn that off, so as the page is going in and out, the menu items were shrinking and doing weird things. I don't want that. So make sure if you're doing a custom menu that you've turned off responsive width and width. All right, so now we've got our menu in place. We use the accordion, we redesign it, change the type, change the background. The only thing I want to do now is actually put something up there for people to tap on. So let's zoom into that area. I just did Command plus, by the way, PC Control plus to zoom in. And now all I'm going to do is just make a graphic that people would know to tap on. And I'm just going to use the built-in, you can bring in a graphic. You can go make something in Photoshop and Illustrator and bring it right in. But I'm just going to use what's already here. I'm just going to use the rectangle tool. I'm going to go ahead and just drag out a rectangle right inside that trigger area. And once that rectangle is in place, I'm just going to go ahead and change the fill for it. Let's go ahead and change it to, I don't know, white. White works for me for this. And here's what I mean. See how it defaulted that to responsive width? No, no, no. Don't make it responsive width. Turn that off. All right, so now I can take that rectangle and, of course, duplicate it 2 more times. I'm going to hold down my Option key, duplicate it, and hold down my Option key 1 more time, duplicate it, and it will automatically space it out. So select all 3, move them up a little bit, and group them together so I don't have to worry about moving them around separately anymore. So now that becomes, it's just 3 rectangles, but now that becomes my mobile menu. Last but not least, for the accordion itself, I want to say in the options that you can close it. It can be closed, because if you don't do that, it will stay open the entire time. And the other thing is you have to decide whether or not it's going to push the content down on the page when someone drops the menu down, which is kind of a cool effect. Maybe you fill your accordion with like a dark gray or dark black so it looks like a light box. So when they tap the menu, this dark gray menu comes down and pushes all the content down and then goes back up. Or it overlaps your content, meaning it covers the content that's below the menu. Totally up to you. All right, so now that I've done that, I can click to collapse it, click to expand it, and that becomes my menu. Now keep in mind that that accordion, if we select it, I don't want it to be responsive. Don't stretch, don't do anything weird. And I also want it to be pinned responsively to the right. Now, what did I tell you earlier? It's already duplicated that over to the other, every aspect we just did. It's already put it all on the other breakpoint. So it's going to probably be in a weird spot. It's probably going to be responsive over there because we didn't set any options for it in the other breakpoint. So one of the things you can do which is kind of a shortcut, is you can say, for this widget that I've now got perfectly set up the way I want, I don't want to have to go do all that over again in the other breakpoint. And by the way, this is what it looks like in the other breakpoint. See what I mean? It's just totally trashed over here because it didn't know what to do. So what I want to do over here instead is I want to click on this breakpoint. Click on this object. First, let's do it for the 3 rectangles. Right click, copy size and position to the other breakpoint. Just do it that way. Same thing for the accordion. Copy size and position to the other breakpoint. Now you still may have to tweak it, but at least that'll get you most of the way there. All right, so if we go to the other breakpoint, see, it's much better. Still not perfectly where I want it to be, but I don't have to do as much work. And do I really want this one in this breakpoint? Aha, because now we're at the full desktop size. I don't really need the hamburger menu or mobile menu on this breakpoint. Let's talk about that in just a second. So, okay, so we got our breakpoint here. We got our menu here. We got everything we want the way we want it. And it looks like it's functional. And of course, this will continue to update based on what we do in the layout. And because we did that, it's on all the pages now. So the menu's there on all the pages. But now we have to decide, is that what we want? So what I have to think about now is 960 would be representative of our 960 and above would be representative of our desktop size, something probably on a computer. Then we're probably going to have lots of devices in between. Tablets, bigger phones, car displays, whatever people are looking at. There's no such thing as design just for tablet, phone, and desktop, because almost everything has a browser now. Your refrigerator someday is going to have a browser in it. The Tesla car has a big 17-inch display in it. Your iPad Pro is the same size now display as a small MacBook Pro or MacBook. So we have to get out of the mentality of phone, tablet, desktop, because there are going to be all these little categories in between. So responsive design is really about making sure your design looks good on whatever the maximum size is going to be and the smallest size you think it's going to be and everything in between. Not necessarily just 3 breakpoints or 4 breakpoints or whatever. So what you're really doing is you're deciding that as this browser gets bigger, as we get to a bigger display, is this design right? Is this what I would want? And if that's the case, then keep going. If not, that's what you mean by a breakpoint. That's when your design breaks and you need to make adjustments for it. So for example, let's do one more thing here. Let's go ahead and put some text in. And we'll put a frame down here. And we'll say that this is going to be 123 Anywhere Street, Atlanta, Georgia, 30303. And we want that centered. And we want that type to be something lighter. We'll just make it white for now. And we want that frame to be responsive width. And now there's a toggle, by the way, for formatting the text on the current breakpoint. Or if I toggle it, format the text across all breakpoints. Now this is formatting. This isn't what the text says. The text is the text. It says whatever it says, no matter what. Formatting means the font, the size, the color can be different in each breakpoint. So just letting you know that distinction between the toggle and the type tool. Let me break for a second and look at questions. How did you make the rectangle group active and touchable? Well, there was a lot of things. So it was basically I put a accordion widget there first, and then I put the rectangles on top of that. Does Muse integrate with any libraries like Bootstrap? No, not that I know of. You could indicate if Adobe will do a link sync. Okay, do I know or could I indicate if Adobe will do a link or sync with photos from Lightroom in the future? I could, but I can't. I cannot speak on future things that have not been announced as an Adobe employee, and I will not, and I have not in 20 years. So, no, I can't. How do you get that developer mode in Safari? You go to your preferences in Safari, first turn on developer mode, and then once you're in Safari, once this develop menu is here, so this is a preference, turning on this menu in the first place. Once you turn on that menu, then you can enter the responsive or enter responsive design mode or exit it. So if I exit it, it goes right back to regular Safari. If I enter it, it turns it on. So first thing you got to do is go to your preferences and turn on the develop mode. Then once you're there, you can turn this display on or off. And by the way, that's very cool that they've done that in Safari. We show us how to create a custom menu. If time permits, I will. Okay. All right. And you can think that was whatever you want. Yes or no. All right. So now we've designed our text. And that text, of course, now is also in the other breakpoint because we designed it that way. And notice what it did. It responded to the width automatically and made that bigger. All right. So now what I need to do is let's start expanding out this design beyond this display. So what I would be looking for next is at what point would the design accommodate the regular menu? That's what I would be looking for next. In other words, at what point would my browser width be big enough to where I could get rid of the hamburger menu and put a regular menu in? Because everything else is already working. So let's put that regular menu in first. Let's just for example, let's test it. Let's say that we want to put that horizontal menu in now, just to see how wide that is. And if I look at that, it's already giving me the width. It's saying that this menu is 446 pixels wide. So my design would have to be at least 446 pixels wide before I could switch menus. That might be your next breakpoint. It's up to you. So at this point, and some people like to keep the mobile menu all the way up to what they would call a tablet size. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think whatever accommodates your design is what you aim for. So let's play with that for example. Let's get rid of it for now. And let's go up to at least 446. So 446 is right there. And let's say 450. I'm going to say at 450 pixels, I want a breakpoint and I want to dump the mobile menu and put in the regular menu. So I'm going to add a breakpoint at that spot. So now I've made my design a little bigger for whatever size display will fit this, and everything up will fit this. And anything smaller than this will switch to the mobile menu. So now how do I tell it to do one versus the other? And this is the coolest thing about Muse, is that Muse takes advantage of layers. So and every object is on a layer. So what I can do at this point, I can either do it from the layers panel or I can do it using right click. I usually do it from right click because it's faster. But let me bring up the layers panel for a minute. Oh, not layers, not library, layers. And right now we built everything so far on layer 1 and there are all the items. So there, you can turn things on or off. There's the logo, and you could rename these things, by the way. So I could rename this so that we know what it is. Altura logo. That might help on bigger designs, so you know what everything is. There's that rectangle, so I could say that that's the footer rectangle. Rectangle. And this is probably the header rectangle. Yep. Header rectangle. And, again, it takes a few seconds to make that text or those layers named. But it means so much more from here on out. I'll know what those things are without having to guess. So, for example, this group is the mobile menu. And this is also the mobile menu. Actually, that's the mobile menu icon. So this is mobile menu And this is the mobile menu icon. Okay. So now that makes it a little easier to know what's what. So what would I want to turn off here? You've already got the idea. I don't need the mobile menu. I don't need the mobile menu icon. So I've turned it off in this breakpoint. We go back to this breakpoint, it's still here. If we go to this breakpoint, it's still here. If we go to this breakpoint, it's turned off. That's how it works. So let's go here and do the same thing. We don't need the mobile menu in this breakpoint. We don't need the mobile menu icon in this breakpoint. Turn them off. They're still here, not here, not here. So now at this point, what's next? We put the thing in that we do want in this breakpoint. So we want the regular menu. So we can go into the widget library. We can grab the regular horizontal menu. We can put that regular horizontal menu anywhere we want. I want to put it up here. Ooh, I don't have enough room up here. So what do? I can make any adjustments in this breakpoint I want. So I can say make maybe the page taller. I can't because that's no, sorry, I can't do that. I can do this. Let's do this instead. Let's make this rectangle bigger. And I'm only working in this breakpoint, only doing these things in this breakpoint. Let's go here and kind of get rid of this default gray. And we don't want it to be the exact same color. Ooh, God, that's bad. That's awful. You know what? How about no color? That's even better. All right, so no color. And we want some different text. Oops, sorry. There we go. We'll again stick with Arial for now. And maybe I don't need. I was gonna say maybe I don't need that big, but we'll keep it. And there's one more thing that's kind of bothering me about this. Uniform spacing. Nah, uniform scale is better. There we go. Okay. Oh, now I messed it up. Okay, let's space it out. Space it out. Space it out some more. Oh, maybe I do want this bigger yet. Okay, but anyway, there we go. And now, here's the problem though. Whenever you add something to any breakpoint, by default, it puts it in every breakpoint. So if we go back down to 320, that menu's there. We don't need that menu there. So one of the ways we can quickly get rid of it is right click on it. And if we can find it, there we go. Right click on it, hide in breakpoint or hide in other breakpoints. So if we go back, I do want it in both of these, so I don't want to do the hide in other breakpoints, but we can go back to this one. We can either turn it off in the layers or hide in breakpoint, and it hides it in this breakpoint, but keeps it in this breakpoint. It's already in this breakpoint. We just need to move it around. All right, so at this point, the next thing we want to do, and also it looks like that menu was set to be responsive with, and that's up to you whether or not you want it to be responsive with, but it is. So that means that menu now, if we look at this page, hello Theater Geek California. This is the way it looks. And at some point, that breaks at that point. Yeah, I would say we don't want. Now, it's just because my Chrome window won't go down small enough, so let's look at it in the Safari window instead. Safari, let's paste that in one more time. So we get our mobile menu on that device. Mobile menu. Oh, we get our desktop menu. And you know what? I'm thinking now that's not good. It still doesn't look right on this larger display that's now 375. And maybe that shouldn't be at that display. Let's go ahead and look. Where did I tell? Oh yeah, it shouldn't be there. I told it to be there only at 4 something. So something went awry here where it thinks that that's, oh, you know why? I think I know why. Hold on. I think I know why. Let's look at it this way. Nope, didn't matter. Okay, not sure why on that device it's there, but these it looks good. So what I might do is I might adjust that mobile menu to be a bigger breakpoint. So what I'm going to do is go down to this 450 and I'm going to say either A, make the menu smaller so it looks okay on a smaller device, or B, just say that this was the wrong spot to put this menu. I can do that without having to start over. I can just simply right click to breakpoint properties, and I can say, you know what, 450 might not have been right. Let's try 500. There we go. And I can just make that one breakpoint bigger. So I can say from 500, we get this, and then, oh, actually, no. I know where I'm doing it backwards. Hold on. Let's undo that. Let's go down to, okay, we're back down to 450. What I want to do instead is I want to say that we get the mobile menu up to a certain point. So starting at 450, it's okay to have this one, but up until a certain point, we want the mobile menu. So we can do that a couple of ways. I don't want to make this 320 breakpoint any bigger, so we can add one in between, or we can simply adjust this menu so it works better. It's totally up to you. So at this point I can say, well, it kind of starts to get crowded. The design breaks here right around, and this is why it was still there, because that phone was 375. So now I get it. So either I got to say at this breakpoint, maybe we don't want this menu to be responsive. Only on this breakpoint, we're going to say none, and we're just going to make it smaller and make our text a little bit smaller. Or we can just simply say, nah, up until this point, we want mobile. Totally up to you. So let's not do it that way, because again, I'm changing my mind as I go. So I'm going to say, yeah, let's stick to mobile up to that breakpoint. So from here, we're just going to go to our layers, and we're going to say it's not time yet for this menu. Let's go back to our mobile menu, and let's keep the mobile menu for now. And let's make sure we don't go responsive on this. It isn't good. All right, put that. So we'll put this where we want it to be. Put this over here. Move this in. And now we have our mobile menu up to that point. And so here we don't want this object. Hide and breakpoint. There we go. And here we want to move this back again. All right. So there we go. We're good. Good. And from that point on, so now if we refresh this, well, what would those presets be? Devices are always changing. So you could make your own. You could say 320, 416, 768, whatever. But that would be an ongoing battle. So it just depends on what you consider to be. What devices would those be? There are new devices coming out every day. So that's why there aren't presets for specific devices. And also devices change every day. So now here we are. If I were to look at it on these various presets for iOS devices, now it starts to make sense. And if I go to an iPad mini, and I go to that iPad mini vertical or split screen, there we go, that's vertical. That's split screen vertical. That's split screen vertical, and that's width. So it automatically adjusts accordingly. And you can always do this, by the way. You can always pull it in, even in Safari, to see it this way. So that's why I said it's just not feasible to do breakpoint for every device out there because you'd have 100 presets, 100 devices. All right, so now we've got our breakpoints in for our menu. We've got our menu in place, and now that's been carried across to every page. By default, it now works. So now it's at this point, it's just really about putting your content in. So if we go to our home page, you got 24 minutes left. I got to get cracking here. And obviously, I see a change I'd want to make right off the bat. That rectangle's too tall for that active state. So I'll go back to the master page, change the active state of that menu to make that active state different. Just one real quick thing here. Active state. And maybe we bring this down, or there we go. So it's under the menu. And change the color if you don't want that color. But back to what we were doing. Let's go back to the home page. All right, so now we've got everything there for our master page. We've got our logo, we've got our address, we've got our main menu, we've got our mobile menu. Now it's time to start putting content on these pages. So this is what I meant by I'm on the home page now. I'm not on the master anymore. And on the home page, I see triangles for the breakpoints that got created on the master, but there are no breakpoints on this page because the master's taking care of the master items. What I put on this page may not be the same necessity of breakpoints. It may not need to be the exact same ones. They may be the same ones. It may be more. It may be less. It depends on what I put on this page. So that will determine. Each page is different for what breakpoints you want. If you want the breakpoints at those triangles, you can add them in, but you don't need them if they don't need to be there for the content on this page. They will automatically be there for the master items. Okay, so now let's say we want to put some items on this page. What do we want? We want, and again, if you want to design for mobile first, you would go down to the mobile size. You would put your breakpoint there and decide what you want. So let's do that. Let's click here. And by the way, one of the ways to do that is to simply click to get to that breakpoint on the triangle and then add it. So now there is a breakpoint at 320 on the home page. So on the home page, what do I want? Well, what do I want on my home page? It's up to you. So if I go to my libraries, I might want kind of a nice graphic there. I might want a nice splash screen there. So, for example, let's use this. Now, if I bring this graphic over, and this is an Adobe stock image, I'm now sizing that graphic out. And of course, that graphic will be on this breakpoint and whatever other breakpoints I've got. And I can go ahead and just place that anywhere I want. And by default, like I said, all new graphics you place on the page are automatically responsive width and height if it's a graphic. So that's automatically been done. So now if we were to make this bigger, that's just going to automatically make that graphic bigger, love it or hate it. It's going to do it. So I might need to make some adjustments there. Maybe pull it down a little bit first and then pin it where I want it to be or stay. So maybe something like that. Let's see what happens. Yeah, see, but it starts to break at a certain point. So again, that's what breakpoints are all about. So let's go ahead and put on some other items here. What do I want next? Maybe I want some text next. So let's put in some text about the company. And maybe I want this text, since we're on a mobile device, to be the full width. And let's see, I don't know if I have this here or not. Just looking for something real quick. I'm not sure if Muse has this or not. I can't remember. Yeah, I don't think it does, unfortunately. All right, click on it. No, it doesn't. Okay. Welcome to Tura. We innovate when it comes to the health care industry. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Let's, matter of fact, we're going to copy some of that blah, blah, blah over and over again. All right, so now we got our blah, blah, blah text. And then let's pretend, for the sake of time, that we would have some more blah, blah, blah text. And maybe another graphic. And again, this is the way it would be looking on a smaller device like a phone. And maybe we're going to talk about one of our execs. So we'll bring in an exec photo. And that exec photo is going to go like that. We need to pull that text down some more. And blah, 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 blah. So you just keep designing, keep putting things on the page. Now, this is where it gets in. This is where it gets interesting, because that looks great at 320. What happens when someone's looking at it on a bigger device? So now I got to start saying, okay, if we were to make this wider, am I okay with that? Oh, hang on. Hold on. We didn't do our pinning. Let's keep that centered. Let's keep that centered. Let's pull this back down. Keep that centered. All right. Let's see what happens now. I don't know why it's jumping like that. That's weird. Oh, sorry. I know why now. Same problem. Because it's over here. That's why. All right. So for now, same problem as before. So I decide, do I fix it here, work down, or do I maybe delete that breakpoint? And let's see if I do that. Can I do that? Can I delete this breakpoint? I can. Okay, cool. Now we don't have to worry about it. Okay, so now as I expand out, I have to decide what happens as this gets bigger. So maybe maybe at this point, what I would start to say is, okay, if we go to our next breakpoint here, and we were to add that breakpoint in, then everything will adjust accordingly to that breakpoint. Lose my other text. Text, oh text, where are you? And now you're learning the joys of designing for mobile first, which, as someone already indicated, sometimes it's easier to work the other way around. So I'm going to keep going for now. But if you're looking at this and saying, yeah, I'm thinking at least in Muse it might be easier to work the opposite way, you might be right. So there's some text hiding there somewhere. I see where it is. It's behind everything. There we go. Okay, so our image got bigger. Everything's where we wanted to be. And then maybe at another point, we go out to here. We add another breakpoint, and we might say that, okay, when we get out this size, maybe I don't want this image this large anymore. So we'll go ahead and break that one down. And maybe I also obviously don't want the text to be spanning across the page like that anymore. So maybe we'll go here, here, and maybe we want to do something like this. And then maybe we also want to change how these things respond, because maybe from here on out, I want to use my guides, and I want this one to stay to the right, and this one to stay to the right as well. And this is still going to respond responsively. So, you run into things like this where that starts to look good until you run into a point where it doesn't look good. and then you make another breakpoint and make your adjustments. So that's kind of the way the process would work. In terms of where you start, that's up to you. I've done it both ways. I would say I probably lean more towards designing big first and working down. Experts will tell you to do the opposite. If you delete that bigger breakpoint starting out, then designing small and working out might work better, because then it won't keep duplicating everything over to the bigger breakpoint that you have to keep adjusting for. So when we go here, we got that. When we go here, we've got that. And when we go here, we've got this. So again, I can make any adjustments I want to make while I'm here. So maybe I want to, actually that worked out right. Let's go ahead and pull that down. And if we get down to a certain point to where it just looks weird, I can make my adjustments accordingly. So maybe here I'd put another breakpoint in and say, well, now that stuff's starting to move too far down on the page, maybe right about here, I want to make some adjustments. So I put a breakpoint in for this page, and I just move this stuff up some because it was drifting down too far. And maybe when we get down this small, maybe I do want to go back to this one being all the way spread across, and this one being aligned center. So now I've got that versus this versus this versus that. So you can work it any way you want. Okay, we got like 15 minutes left and a lot of stuff to cover. So let me jump to it, and I'll try and save at least a few minutes at the end to answer your questions that I see piling up over there. All right, so because I got kind of in the weeds with the responsive stuff, let's jump in and do a couple of quick things for people that are new to Muse and just want to know what else you can do. So, for example, if I go to my About Us page and I wanted to put in a map to where we're located, I can go in and I can go to my widget library, and you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of social widgets, one of which being Google Maps. So if I drag in a map on that page, it defaults to, because we have to default somewhere, it defaults to the Adobe San Jose location. You can go ahead and put in, if you right click on or click on the menu, you can put in whatever address you want. So I could say, for example, 313 Michigan Avenue, Detroit, Michigan. All right, and then once I hit return, it'll then be a map to that location. So that location in downtown Detroit. Of course, I can put whatever text or images I want on this. So for example, if I wanted some text, by the way, let's also make sure that we responsively put that on to the right. And then we put the text over here on the left. And we can say, find us easily from downtown. Now, if I want to adjust the type, you have a couple of options there. Of course, you can use the 11 or 12, whatever they are, standard we call them fallbacks now. These are the fonts that are in 99% of the devices that are out there today, 99% of desktops and mobile devices. You also have the ability to use web fonts, and now we have 3 different ways to do that. You can use the Typekit font library, which kind of makes it cool because you can use the same kind of fonts you've been using in your desktop designs. You can use the original 400 plus web edge fonts, or if you've got a custom font and you want to self-host it, you can do that as well. So for example, if I kind of like, I'll just pick one just for the sake of example. Let's say I like industry. I can go ahead and choose industry. That will build industry into Muse for me to use. Once it's added that font, I can switch this to industry. And I have all the different styles for industry, so industry medium. And now, and here we'll make that bigger. So now if I were to preview this page in the browser, it adds that one line of code that makes that font work in anyone's browser. So even if you've never heard of industry, you're going to have that font. So obviously I need to add some breakpoints and kind of fix where that map ends up along the way. But there you are. All right, so widgets for social, widgets for PayPal, widgets for Google Plus and Facebook and Twitter and YouTube videos, and all of that's there. Um, we'll get to hosting in just a minute. Just want to make sure I don't miss the other thing I was going to talk about, which was, I don't remember. All right, so let's talk about hosting. So when you're finished or ready to start uploading your site, you've got three choices. Under your file menu, here are your three choices. You can upload your site to any hosting service on the planet that does FTP hosting or FTP transfer to host. So for example, if you like, I use Bluehost. If you like GoDaddy, if you like Network Solutions, if you like Bluehost, if you like any Fat Cow, if you like a million other hosting providers all over the world, create an account, get your FTP credentials, and upload your site via FTP, buy your domain, and away you go. Or don't buy a domain. It's up to you. But that's all on you and whoever you host with. As a Creative Cloud member, you can host up to 5 sites with Adobe, 5 independent, separate, different sites. And that would be the Publish to Business Catalyst option. That's part of your Creative Cloud membership, the ability to host 5 different sites that you build with Muse, but you only get to do 5. When you're uploading via FTP, you can create 1 million sites if you want, 500 sites, 1,000, how many ever sites your service provider will let you host. And then last but not least, what we talked about early on, if you wanted to design the front of this and say, hey developer, I've got you started, here's everything I want, go finish it in whatever you want, export a whole folder of HTML, of your HTML, CSS, JavaScript, images, everything that makes your site work will go to a folder. It's a one-way export. It does not come back into Muse. Muse does not know anything about that folder the minute it finished exporting it. So your site would still be maintained in Muse, but anything done outside of Muse is on your own and does not come back to Muse. It's a one-way trip. All right, so those are your 3 ways to do it. So let's look at some questions that I may have missed. Looks like Rufus has been answering some of the questions. What is the latest version of Muse? CC 2015.1. Thank you. So basically for static showcase web pages mainly, unless you integrate other widgets that do more. Out of the box or out of the cloud. Yes, that's what it does. What else? The whole mobile first approach stems from the fact that majority of web traffic is on mobile devices. Designers simply cannot be ignored. Having said that, working mobile to desktop, vice versa, shouldn't actually matter. Agreed. I agree. And again, we could debate the whole mobile to desktop first all you want, but at the end of the day, it is up to you. As long as, I think the idea or the running theme that I'm seeing in the comments, as long as you have mobile, at the end of the day, does it really matter where you started? You're not going to look at a website and say, aha, they designed that one for mobile first. You're not going to know. All you're going to know is that it looks great on mobile, looks great on tablets, looks great on desktop, and everything in between. So last tip along the way that I'll give you, I can keep going for the next 7 minutes before the next streamer comes on. Then this is kind of an interesting one. And it is, let's say we go back to that About Us. And I say to myself, you know what? I don't want to have to keep messing with this and create a breakpoint every time I get a little smaller. So here's another tip. And this is kind of a hybrid between a fixed layout website. I'm not sure what I just did there. That's weird. A fixed layout website and a responsive one. And that is, I think that was just a display issue. And that is, let's say that I want to do 768 and 320 just to keep it simple. So I can jump down to 768. And I can just type it in instead of doing what I'm doing now, but I'm almost there. All right, so I'm at 768. I add that breakpoint, and then I jump down to 320 and add that breakpoint. And of course, I fix it on those two breakpoints. So here I would say, no, that's crazy. It shouldn't look like that. Maybe it should look more like this. And maybe that map should actually now go here. And maybe this should look like this. Okay? Great. I made it look beautiful at 320. Now let's go make it look beautiful at 768. I'm not worried about the in-between stuff. I just want to make it look beautiful on each one of these. So I come here and I say, well, maybe I want it to look like that. And maybe I want this to not be so squinched up. I want it to span across both of those. Great. I made it look great at 768. And it already looks okay. Maybe we can make it look better now at 320. I'm sorry, 960, I should say. And we do that. Now, obviously, by putting those two objects together, the minute I start pulling in, it's already going to be a problem. So here's what I want to do instead. I want to go to each one of these breakpoints and make them not fluid. Turn off the fluid breakpoint. Go here, not fluid. And I need to fix that. But anyway, not fluid. Okay, so if I turn off fluid and then go make my adjustments, what I have now told Muse to do is that when the browser drops down below 960, just jump to this layout. Don't worry about all the stuff in between. When the browser drops down below 768, drop down to this look. So that way you don't have to do as many breakpoints. Your site still looks great on mobile and as many of the breakpoints in between as you want. And you don't have to worry about all those what I call fractional breakpoints. All that stuff in between 960 and 768, which could exist on other devices. But I just say, you know what? If it's smaller than 960, just make it look like that. If it's smaller than 768, or maybe I put one more in between, just make it look like that. And that way I don't have to do as much. So for people that say, hey, I just want to make it fast and simple, and I don't want to have to tweak it for every little browser in between, turn off fluid. And now you have still a responsive site that responds to that browser window, but now it's fixed for each breakpoint you add. And you don't have to worry about the breakpoints that would have been in between. All right. The room on the side is not enough though. Then fix it. All right. What else? And it looks like I got 3 minutes left. Okay. And so people are tweaking in the comments what they think about the stuff on the side. And again, you change it to whatever you want. Good point about the mobile map. So maybe on the 320 screen size, I put this up here instead. Because what happens is, and I've run into that myself, what he says is if I put the map here at the top and people try and scroll it, their finger is on the map and they're scrolling the map, not the page. So you're right. Or maybe give someone a finger scroll area. So now you've got that area to scroll on without it being all the way across the page. Okay, so again, all different ways of attacking things. So we went from scratch. We kind of started building out a site. We got a little deep into the responsive stuff, but I think it was necessary for you to see it. Now you know which way you can handle different things and different things that erupt. And if you want to keep it simple, just do 3-4 breakpoints and make them not fluid. That way the site will just jump down to those sizes if the browser ever gets to a certain size. We talked about uploading. We talked about widgets. And by the way, if you want to see, quickly, I got 2 minutes. If you want, say, for all the people saying, oh, so what if I want to do this or what if I want to do that? And I don't see a way to do that in Muse. Go to your library, not the CC library, go to the library, the original library in Muse, and where it says find more items online. When you do that, that'll take you to all the different widgets that exist that do all the stuff that Muse doesn't do. So for people that want to do shopping carts, for people that want to do a database, for people that want to tie in other things, for people that want to do international SEO, for people that want to do all these other things, they exist. Just we can't build everything in on day one. We can't build everything in on day 2 or day 5 or day 500. But we can certainly encourage our third-party community to add on all those things that people want to be able to do. So Muse gives you what I gave you. The third parties give you way more if you want to add on. All right, so that's my time. Thanks for watching the stream. We'll catch you on the next one. I think Jace is up next. Can't remember who's up next. Who's ever up next? Watch them, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.